Hi, good morning. Thank you for being here. We'll jump straight ahead to the topic. I think we had a great preceding panel in terms of looking at the future, but we wanted to be a little bit more granular and understand those shifting mechanics, right, in terms of media rights. We're going from the traditional linear model, which from an economics perspective was predicated on bulk viewing, bulk advertising that funded the TVs that pay for the rights. Now we're going to streaming, which is globalization, but with a desperate need for localization and targeting, right? So I want to open the floor with Roland, maybe, as you know, the mover and shaker of the market, to kind of give us an overview of that shift and how you think it will potentially, affect the industry going forward.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, thank you for hosting us here. Thank you, Lewis, and the panel before, who took a long time, probably eaten up into our time. But this is a very interesting question, and the topics that were mentioned earlier panel lead up to this conversation, because if you see the change that's been happening, it's been happening over a few period of time, and the main shifts that we see is driven by audience consumption, by segmentation of the audience, and all these players and platforms have the one drive to try and make sure they capture that audience, deliver the content in the right way. If you compare the streamers with the traditional broadcasters, that shifted a long time ago. When what Peter mentioned earlier, when you had one view of a football game and one screen, now everything's been completely changed, and the grab for attention is what everyone's fighting for. When you look at the streamers and the way the premium rights have evolved and shifted from the traditional broadcasters to the streamers, two different business models, whereby you still need the broadcaster that can get you down into the vertical, into the audience narrative and creating those storylines. However, when you look at the streamers that are looking for lifetime value, basically grabbing the subscribers, making sure they're connecting, and ultimately, back in the day, everyone decided that 8 o'clock kickoff, everyone's turning up and watching. Those modes have shifted, and that's created the world that we live in with the likes of Netflix and YouTube. That's effectively what's happening, is that the business model is completely shifted and they need to adapt. And if you look at what's happened in the premium rights space, you look at the NBA, the NFL, that deals with Amazon, what we've done with the UFC, get to big streamers. I think if I look at just how my children consume today, they don't know that a match is kicking off at this time. They'll go onto their platform, they'll go on Netflix, they'll see what is being suggested, and they'll flick on it. And if you're looking at what's happening, it's basically effectively building the right ecosystem to make sure that the younger audience is being found and catered to. It's quite exciting times for everyone.
And Soheil, to go to a minimum expression of the sports ecosystem as a club, how does the shift in media consumption affect you in terms of monetization, generating revenue, and actually being able to field a competitive team, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. I'm excited to be here and also talk with all of you guys. I'm still new in the game, so I'm excited to learn a lot about streaming, but we've done something exciting in the last year and a half. We built a pro football club in only 1 year. We documented everything on social media, which is the next evolution of content consumption. I'll give my perspective as a smaller club that's still growing, that's not in the top league, and how we're going around trying to monetize things. So in our league, in the UAE second division that our club is in, we don't have a countrywide streaming deal right now. Like, not all of our games are being streamed. So what we decided to do is we partnered up with a tech platform called Smashy Sports. And essentially what we're doing is we're doing like a revenue share model where they get exclusive rights to be able to stream all of our games. And basically for us, that's a new revenue stream for the football club. So they can, all of our audience, all of our fans, they can access all of our games. But then we've decided to go a little bit deeper in terms of not just doing the actual games, but also showing the behind the scenes of trainings, what happens at the player accommodation, how do players interact. But all that content also gets done by Smashy Sports. So then for fans who are tuning in, they don't only get the matches every single week. There's so much more to it, and I think that's really important in terms of creating depth of engagement in the whole streaming space and in the whole media consumption space. It's the audience needs to start getting to know not only the 90 minutes on the football pitch, but also the actual players, the coaches, how they're thinking, the behind the scenes, the locker room, what happens and all that type of stuff. And then we've also added some complementary stuff. For example, we have an inner circle where all of our closest fans are in that chat. We contribute their ideas to building with them. We build the club with them. One example of that and how we've monetized it is we decided to let our fans build and design our kits. So they got to design it over a 2 to 3 month period. We would post social media content. We contributed their ideas to designing it. And then once we launched, we actually had hundreds and hundreds of sales as, again, a UAE second division club. So we're quite new. So we're trying to be very innovative with finding ways to monetize. But I think in terms of like streaming, for us, it's trying to become a lot more interactive and deep, opposed to just having the superficial 90 minutes every single week.
And basically it's about community building. I guess that, you know, it will be a gift if all clubs, all leagues had that approach, because for media rights holders or buyers, they will exactly know which is their audience, right? And we were referring to targetization. And I wanted to jump in light of that to Sam to understand from your perspective at LaSource in terms of what can clubs, leagues, right holders do from a tech perspective, a tech stack perspective, to actually not only create a community, but really understand it. So then maybe in the next tender, they have a different proposition towards the buyers in terms of what they are offering.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? A lot of the leagues right now are reacting to situations of not being able to sell their rights, or the right holders actually pulling out from the rights that they actually acquired. And I think that that's one of the big issues right now, is that leagues, clubs aren't tech companies. And so they don't necessarily understand the tech. They don't understand what's really going on the broadcaster side as it is. And they're not looking at what the future it looks like in terms of adopting the right technologies for the future generating, revenue generating technologies out there. And I see a few friendly faces out there, right? It's something that we did 5 years back with Greenfly about capturing that 9:16 type of content behind the scenes, because that's what the younger audiences are looking for. With Respo Vision, it is about how to capture data. There's a lot of technology out there also about thinking about the reach, right? Because ultimately there are two things. It's how you increase your reach on social media to get the eyeballs, and then down at the bottom of the funnel is how you're going to capture data. Leagues, clubs don't know how to capture data. They've been investing in technology to actually increase their reach on social media, but haven't created value around their fans in that way. And so I think that it's really important to think not only top of the funnel, big numbers that will impress, right, the owners of the organizations, but at the bottom of the funnel, what do you actually own, and what can you actually do with your fan base that has value for the future of building the next ecosystem. And I think that a lot of the leagues right now are, so when they don't sell the rights, they react to create a D2C platform. What we're trying to do is to help those leagues anticipate that, understand how to build the tech stack, what are the pieces to plug together, and how to ensure a strategy where, you know what, maybe if you go D2C year one, you're going to lose a lot of money. Can you be, profitable by year 3? Can you make a lot of money 5 years from now on the database that you acquired? That is not just the revenue of selling your rights, but the database and what you can do around it. This is what is really interesting in this shifting industry, and how to plug the pieces together, those technologies that can make a difference in that.
I mean, I guess we're seeing that happening live in France with how they approach the market, right?
And we're right there, right? And it's incredibly exciting to be working with the League One on different topics on that, in that regard. But it was interesting also, Austria had 1 year ahead of them before doing that. And in the end, they sold the rights to Sky. How can we help the Jupiler Pro League with the zone pulling out, right? And there is that element of anticipation. But one of the big problems in the industry, especially in Europe, is that ultimately what the leagues was here to do was to sell the rights as expensive as possible, because the clubs needed the short-term money for their transfer window. It's a longer process when you're building technology, and it's about acquiring the data. It's a long-term process, and they haven't anticipated it. So shifting from selling the rights to creating your D2C is not going to turn into a profitable business overnight.
If I may add to that as well, the fact that it takes so long to build a fandom and to build that audience and to have a proper attachment to the property also is taking time. As technology is advanced and getting faster and faster, but to really build a meaningful lifetime fan that is a hardcore fan, it takes those stories and narrative that are backed by the tech and the data stacks and delivered to those audiences in the right way at the right time, the way that emotionally it hits them and then they connect with it. So you need to have that science and magic to make sure it's all weaved in together, and that takes time. And actually I concur to say that everyone is looking for the immediacy of P&L, numbers, cash now, and not taking the long-term view. And that's what we're here to help advise and work with these federations and league to help them look at that long view for them.
And jumping a little bit more to my realm, I come from a European property, many years at the EuroLeague on the commercial side of sponsorships, right? And as an anecdote, the way we founded the digital department was predicated on two things. We ran out of inventory to sell to sponsors, and I was the younger guy in the sponsorship team, and I had a Twitter account and say, "You're now the head of digital, so figure it out." The way we went about it was, why we need to create or extend a D2C. At that time, we early on had a platform, if it's not for a market development perspective. So whenever we don't have a rights holder, let's just go in and actually try to capture people and create that long-term view that potentially someday we will have created a community that then will command a higher rights fee, right? That's one part. The second part is the pure inventory perspective of it. And I want to jump to Amine into that because I traveled the world trying to sell sponsorship for a European basketball league, which it has its challenges, I will say. But the reality is that with the technology that is available today, and in terms of, adding assets, digital video replacement at different levels, I will go back to my job for sure, just to be able to play with this tech now. And I want Amine to take us a little bit through what you do and how you see that impacting properties like clubs like Soheil's or leagues like the SPL in actually generating accretive revenue from the commercial perspective.
Exactly. Thank you for this. And do you hear me, right? Yes? Yes. After some analysis about the how the clubs are performing financially and what are the aspects which are bringing basically the revenues to the club, seeing the creation of new, for example, tournaments and playing more to earn more. And we believe that there's a limit to that because there's a physical limits to the players, physical limits of financial limits as well, because if you want to avoid injuries, you need to get more players, and then more players means more financials, and then at the end of the day, you're not profitable. So we try to think about a complete disruptive solution, how to explode completely the revenues using a new method of sponsorship. And this new method of sponsorship, which is focused really on athletes, not necessarily billboards, and which is really nice today, but it's a complementary solution. And having that emotional side, having an athlete, having another layer of virtual advertisements on jerseys, where you can have not only one sponsor for a club, but multiple sponsors which are paying for that space. And they are more efficient for them. The efficiency is higher because they can target the region they want to have their visibility. And for the clubs and the leagues and the broadcasters as well, or the owners of the rights, image rights, they're having multiple sponsors paying them, and they are sharing all the revenues all together. So this is a kind of disruptive, but this is going to unlock a completely new business model for the clubs. And looking also to the fans side of you is, yes, I see also my kids are consuming football differently on social media, etc. But I am also the same. I'm 43. Today, when I'm watching a football game, I have always a laptop with me and doing something else. Why? Because football became a little bit, not boring, but there's no surprise behind. It's always passes. There is a certain time of silence, let's say. But this is we see it as an opportunity because you can do a lot of things during that period. You can play some products, some logos, some gamifications as well, where you can attract the attention of people to watch the game, see the sponsors, see the different kind of products, and therefore having much more engagement of the fans thanks to this new virtual advertisement on the jerseys.
Well, thanks. I mean, and definitely, I mean, the game is about the bottom line, right? That's how you get to sign players, compete, and make the club or the competition grow. The question, and linking it back to the previous panel, are we seeing a ceiling anywhere near in terms of live rights, which is the predominant income source of sports globally?
Look, I mean, it depends on which properties you're looking at and which market you're talking about. I think it's a mixture of the ceiling on the media rights. I don't think we're seeing a ceiling, especially not for premium products, for premium live rights in very premium markets or very competitive markets, especially that now where we talked about the streamers and the big deals and some consolidation on the streamers. Back in the day, everyone was waiting to understand an audience from a Nielsen's report, whereas now we go back to data. The streamers, technology companies and platforms give that data. I don't like the word monetizing audience or monetizing fans. It feels like you're taking a lot of money out of it. I find it a bit, because we always underestimate the fan. We always, because I'm a fan, I'm happily to part with my money for the right product, the right time, something that I want to pay for, I will pay for it. I think we continue to see a rise on the live media rights, especially for premium products. I think if you look at other leagues and maybe leagues that are not as such, I think the platforms and the hyper personalization of that product driven by athletes becoming media themselves. And there's great tools out there, great companies that are allowing this to athletes to become their own voice and to take that story into themselves and to talk to that audience. I see from the younger generation, I talk from experience. I was in Chengdu, in China, on holiday, and my 12-year-old grabbed me because IShowSpeed was in Chengdu doing a show. I was like, who is IShowSpeed? The next day I come back, she's watching the Saudi Pro League because IShowSpeed is in the stadium and doing a live stream on the game. That's the fandom of the future. Going back to your question, I see there are two different conversations ongoing. The premium live rights continue. You need the ancillary content around it, the storytelling, all underpinned by a decent tech stack. And don't forget the emotional part of the engagement of the fan. That's super important in my opinion.
Yeah, if I can jump on that, I think that definitely there's a tier one sports that drives subscribers to get a package with a regular telco and where they're willing to overpay for a subscription fee with the traditional model, right? There's only a few of those because we have to say there is a ceiling in sport. When you look at even the Premier League actually capped, right? Bundesliga capped, France dropped, Serie A dropped. So there is a reality, but I think the big opportunity is that those leagues still have a potential of commercial growth by working well now, by going to develop those different, areas where they can actually generate new sources of revenue. And I think it's a huge opportunity for everybody from the sports industry to then go look at, okay, what is my core IP? What strategy can I put in place to be able to develop those new sources of revenue in the way traditional business would actually handle it, right? Because for too long, we've been relying on, without asking questions, the value of the rights just kept increasing, which means that inside the organizations, you didn't have to work a lot to actually generate new revenue, new sources of revenue. And I think that that's where there's the opportunities, that those granular marginal gains in each vertical inside a club, inside a league, are now open to actually work to go get those 3 extra hundreds of thousands of euros that traditionally only came through for clubs transfer windows and for leagues through the rights cycles.
Absolutely, because it means that you have to, as a rights holder, create those different revenue streams by carving up and retaining some rights, exploiting it the right way to make sure that that pie is growing. And that's what technology has delivered, the ability to have those different layers to grow that pie. Yes, the Premier League plateaued, they didn't need to do much, Next cycle, who knows? But if you look at the Champions League, they had to reformat the entire thing. A new streamer comes in, the rights goes up, create the market tension. You have to work at it. You cannot sit back and expect things to go up. Absolutely.
And actually, that leads to kind of the last stretch of the conversation, which is centered on fan engagement. And there's a direct correlation. I agree with you. I mean, we as fans, we're not ATMs. So we actually are, we suffer enough with our teams to actually to be treated that way. So, but the reality is that if you look at the whole ecosystem of sports, and if you take, let's call it, emerging leagues, right? In which are creating the framework so their clubs can bring top competitive players, try to conquer new markets, et cetera, or new clubs, right? Would it be, and this is me thinking probably crazy, would it be possible to see someday that a league like MLS or SPL bundles their rights on the back of the social media presence of the new star that's coming in and say, we are broadcasting SPL games for South America on Cristiano's channel?
Look, I wouldn't go, honestly, it's an interesting question, it's an interesting topic. So if you go back to what we did in France, we had a deal, the SPL had a deal with Canal Plus that wasn't doing very well. They didn't promote it, didn't basically push it, and they didn't take it seriously. We found an influencer that is Zach Nani. Yesterday, Omar talked about him. We basically decided to take a different approach to look for that audience and look for that fan base, look for the right window into how the SPL is building and is delivering. And we found Zach Nani, an influencer that has a love of football, that's been to Saudi Arabia. And we decided, and the league took a bold move as well, to partner with Zach Nani. And we together made sure that he got the right platform, made sure that the content's engaging, and you can see it live happening and the comments that's gathering, and you build that fan base and audience that's genuine. When someone's engaged and commenting, regardless, they're engaged with the content, they're bringing that. And we basically went even further. The SPL invited Zach to do his feed from the stadium. It did not come with its difficulties, but it was bold and it was authentic. It allowed the SPL, someone like the SPL, to show that there are different ways of reaching and building those audiences. And just from one interview with Conan, I think it was 3.8 million impressions on one interview. Those kind of numbers are what every rights holder is looking for in level of deeper engagement. Going back to the Cristiano by himself, there was a live count on Cristiano Ronaldo's channel on how quick it would hit the 100 million, the 200 million, the next. Cristiano Ronaldo is a media company by himself, if you think about it. Would we or the SPL do something with CR7's channel? I would welcome it, of course, because that's an engaged audience that is loyal to an individual that is playing in the league, that is the greatest ambassador for the league. And yes, these are the new ways of reaching and connecting. And again, I look at my household, my friend's household, their kids, how they engage with content, how they discover content. You've got to be thinking that way if you want to build something sustainable. We're not going to be around watching football, maybe, hopefully, when I'm retired. But if you need to build that sustainability, you need to build that audience and fan base. Something that we also miss and not address is the level of piracy that's happening in our industry. And how do you educate that younger audience and bring it to an ecosystem when it's genuine? It's not having to find it through illegal streams. It's by embracing the influencers and bringing them part of the storytelling to create that.
And that's a good segue to what I wanted to discuss now with Amine especially, and from the tech perspective, which is the problem with piracy in terms of the newer generation is because of the perception of value and cost, right? My children, like your children, they are of the YouTube generation. So everything is out there. It's free, so to speak, right? Evidently, that puts its challenges in terms of the expectations, as I said, the assignment of value to the things, right? But that flips to other revenue streams that you can actually generate based on open access to content, right? Which is sponsorship, right? We're talking about tech and hyper-personalization. The tech that you're developing, for me, is mind-blowing. I know that it's going to give Roland a headache in terms of media rights, but as a sponsorship guy, I think that that's the way to go. But if you look at it, you can actually be able to customize a clip. Let's not touch the live for the moment. Let's do canned content, right? So a highlight reel, you and I can be sitting watching the same highlight reel, but because of my preferences, your tech can actually customize the branding. That's invaluable for brands. That commands a premium, right?
Yes, exactly. You're going, as a brand, you are going to be more precise on who you want to target. As a region, as a persona of really customers you want to target, which is invaluable for the brand because you have less risk as well. But also, when you want to pay for a certain service as a brand, and you want to target a certain region, but you can also target certain moments. And then, for example, you're saying, I want to pay only when Cristiano Ronaldo scores and celebrates a goal. You're going to pay only when this moment happens. So for the brand, the risk is zero. And you are monetizing or you are exposing your brand only for a very valuable moment, which is very high for the brand itself. But it goes further actually for the fans as well, that because we talked about fan engagement and creating that surprises as well to create that engagement which everybody wants to have. The technology starts with the logo placements. It will go to animations to attract attentions of the viewers. But the next step will be 3D experiences. You will have celebrations which are more immersive, for example, digital 3D experiences. When you are celebrating a game, you can open your shirt and then, I don't know, if you're in China, there's a dragon going out of your belly or something like that, or product placement. So it's going to be more engaging, more specific to region, more specific to people or families, which will help also for the media rights to sell, to have higher viewers in certain regions according to the time zones. For example, when I was living in Europe, I was watching all the football games, the Champions League in prime time. Now I'm living in Singapore. I think I watch only one game when Paris Saint-Germain was playing, and that's it. Because of time, I have to wake up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. But if the game is tailored for the region, for the culture, and you know that it's going to be a surprising surprising thing which is going to happen, and tailored to the region and rebroadcasted prime time the next day, people are going to rewatch it the next day because they know that this is dedicated to them. And this is going to unlock additional revenues for the clubs, for the leagues, etc.
I'd like to second that. Since I moved to the region, I find it very difficult to watch football late at night. I've got an alarm that says sleep at 10 p.m., so I'm old. But I think also it says to how the non-live rights have been so undervalued, in my opinion. Undervalued because they mean they are valued differently in different parts of the world. And I think it's something that will help us unlock that, is the technology and that hyper-personalization.
And that's 100%. And actually, so you get the perfect assist, as we call it in basketball, to close out. And understanding what you heard here and the process that you've been through in the club, what will be the best scenario from the economic and commercial perspective in terms of how you are planning to monetize, or what you expect you will be enabled to monetize as a club owner to continue to grow and thrive, right?
Yeah, no, really good conversation so far. Again, from my perspective, being like a new club up and coming, I think our main revenue streams right now as a football club is sponsors, our youth academy, and then we also sell merch, and we're looking to monetize our fans. while still bringing them value. So for example, with the live streaming deal that we have right now, I think, like you mentioned, like Speed, for example, every stream he does, some streams get 100,000 people who tune in every single moment. So what we've done really well is we've built a lot of content around the process of building the club and running the club. So we're just trying to uplift our content output, but then also make it deeper in terms of like the live moment. So now, instead of just showing how the team is doing, we're trying to tap into the actual players, creating personalities, creating depth of connection with the coaches on the team. And what that does is it just draws in the audience and the community a lot more. So as we continue to build all these different funnels, I think zooming out, it gets people more excited about the club and the story. And then, you know, once we, hopefully, now we're in first place in the second division, once we continue to promote, then we have bigger opportunities with like streaming deals and all that type of stuff. So right now our main focus is we're just starting small. We've got the partnership with Smashy Sports. We've got thousands and thousands of people like all around the world. They've been wanting to stream our games, so we have that going. My viewpoint now is how can I make that deeper so people actually feel involved with the experience, because then as we continue to launch things, whether it's merch, whether it's products, all that type of stuff, our fans will actually want to be part of it. And then also for sponsors, which is our main revenue stream, once they know we actually have people who care about the club, they're just really going to want to buy in because the audience cares. So there's a vision to support, and then whatever their product or service is, our fans will get behind it as well.
Well, guys, thank you very much. This has
Thank
been
you.
a wonderful
Thank you.
conversation. And
Thank you.
round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.
Finalists.
Thank you.